So today we're making very simple iced biscuits. Now the great thing here is that it's just a basic recipe that you can cut in whatever shape you like, you can pipe however you like, you can flavor the icing, you can color the icing. The good thing about the royal icing recipe is that you can use it on gingerbread. And so if you flip over to the gingerbread recipe, you can use that to make a gingerbread house. So this is not a piping tutorial or a biscuit design tutorial because you'll find so many of them out there. This is just an iced biscuit, plain, simple, delicious, and naturally plant-based. Enjoy. We're going to start by adding our plain flour to a bowl, the baking powder, and a pinch of salt, and just whisking that to distribute the baking powder and make sure there are no clumps. Then in the second bowl, the melted coconut oil, which you can melt in the microwave in short bursts, the plant-based milk at room temperature, the golden syrup. If you want a golden syrup, use agave. It just lends a really nice light caramel flavor. Cast sugar and vanilla extract or vanilla paste if you don't mind seeing the seeds. And we're just going to mix this together. And because of the sugar, we're going to see a syrup form, and essentially we're going to combine oil and water. So you'll see that this is going to go from two separate mixtures to just one. When you look at the syrup in the light, you shouldn't see any oily streaks. That means that everything's been really nicely combined. That's really important because we want to hydrate this dry mix and wet the flour at an even rate. And if we were to add all those ingredients separately, this mixture would have a tendency to crumble. So this part you can use a hand blender or a blender for. We have our thickened pastry syrup. You notice when you look at the back of the spoon at the reflection that there are no oily streaks, that it is, apart from the air bubbles, a pretty seamless reflection of the light. You just want to make sure that all your sugar has dissolved. That's why I prefer for this method to use a blender or hand blender or a NutriBullet. And then we're going to add this to our flour mixture, and we just mix it until it's all combined and there are no streaks of flour left, and a dough will form. So, I mean, first up, it looks like there's not quite enough liquid. Don't add anything else. Just keep kind of working the back of the spatula down into the mixture. This will gradually combine everything. I'm just going to quickly give it a light knead in the bowl, just until all of the streaks are gone and we have a smooth, even dough. We just want to turn it out onto a sheet of baking paper. Doesn't need to rest at this stage because we're going to roll it out first and then put it in the fridge. So just put another sheet of paper on top, and then so we're just rolling it between two sheets of paper. This makes it a lot easier to handle, and the paper will peel right off when we bring it out of the fridge. If you were rolling it on a lightly floured bench, the dough's a little bit on the soft side and just a bit harder to handle. So you'll see it comes off nice and clean, but once we chill it, it'll firm up. You just want to roll that to about 3 to 4 millimeters thickness. Just make sure there are no streaks on either side. So I like to, especially when I'm using 2 sheets of paper, just hold the paper down and push the rolling pin across. So yeah, I'd say maximum 5 millimeters thick. So I'm just going to put this in the fridge for about 30 minutes to firm up. So now we can line a baking sheet with some more baking or parchment paper, and we can preheat the oven to 160 degrees. The dough is rested in the fridge, so it's chilled down. First thing we want to do is just peel back the top layer and then kind of replace it, and then flip it over, peel off the back layer. This just allows us to pick up the cutout design. So I'm making stars today, maybe a star and a moon. So we just cut straight through with a nice, clean, forceful action, and then place it on the baking sheet. So do some rounds. Sometimes if your cookie doesn't come up, you can just leave it as it is on the tray. I'll show you a neat trick for picking up your designs. What you do is replace that parchment, and pull that top piece of paper off, pull away the offcuts. Here are our designs. So this biscuit isn't going to expand massively, it's just going to look gently puffed from the shape that you've cut. So just remember, if you're cutting different designs, or especially if there's different sizes, to bake them separately or at least on separate trays so that you control the bake. So just going to re-roll that last bit of the offcuts. Remember, when it's fresh, your dough will be too soft to handle, so that's why I recommend using 2 sheets of baking paper. If you chill your dough down first, you can actually really easily roll it, but just make sure you lightly flour the bench and the top of it, and then just rub any excess flour off. So we can bake these pretty much immediately. It's a very quick bake, only 6 to 8 minutes. We don't want these to color. This is a kind of biscuit that's just sweet, very tender. I wouldn't say moist, but just a soft cookie. And they're a really nice cookie to pipe icing onto in different colors, perfect for kids' parties. So we're now going to make a version of a royal icing. Now this is a recipe where you need a little bit of reduced aquafaba. And this is just aquafaba from the juice from a tin of chickpeas that we've boiled out to reduce it by half. This just amplifies the foaming capacity or capabilities of the aquafaba. So we've got confectioners or icing sugar, just pure icing sugar, which we will add a tiny bit of vinegar to, pinch of cream of tartar, and the reduced aquafaba. And we want to whisk this, so you could do a bigger batch on a stand mixer quite easily. The idea here is that we want to incorporate some air, so we have quite a thick icing that we're going to whisk. This air is what makes royal icing set hard. So you can see as I'm mixing, it's quite thick, and I'm just going to keep mixing. That is going to, the whisking action is going to start to dissolve the sugar and incorporate air into the mixture. So you can also add whatever extracts that you like. I'm adding a few drops of vanilla. You can also add vanilla paste, you can add spices, colors, and whatever flavors you like. So the idea here is that we have a soft, thick royal icing. And if you keep whipping this, it'll become firmer, and you could use it in construction of things like a gingerbread house. So now we're ready to pipe our icing. You can use a plain piping bag with a very small tube. In this case, I'm actually going to make one. So you could just use a disposable piping bag, although I'd rather not. I like using silicone piping bags with very fine tubes. But if you ever don't have a piping bag, it doesn't matter. You can just fold one up out of some parchment paper. As with traditional royal icing made with egg whites, this one will dry out and create a skin or a crust. So as you're working with it, make sure to put a piece of cling film or a damp towel over it, just so that we don't have a crust that's going to mix into the mix and then clog your piping bag. Simple and delicious. We have an icing that has dried to a crisp, it's got a little bit of crunch to it, and a biscuit that is just really nice and tender, really delicious to eat.